Hello, hello. How are you guys doing? Everybody okay? I know what that glitch was. We had some kind of glitch where the stream just randomly cut out. Who knows what that was? Anyway, it's good to see you guys. It's good to be here back home. We got 31 people watching, but only 18 likes. You know what to do. I want to see those numbers equal. Let's go. So, man, there's a lot to talk about. Indeed. Yeah, I'm gonna get back into the Assange trial in a second, but I wanted to cover this Venezuela issue with you guys. So, because you might have heard the story already, you might have read about it yesterday, but it's not as clear cut as it seems, as you will find out in a second. Okay, so let's get going here. Let's get going. Right. So, like I was saying, you might have heard or read about this court ruling yesterday regarding Venezuelan gold in the UK, and it's not as clear cut or as positive as some people are making it out to be. I mean, it is good news, but you'll see in a second what's written inside of the court ruling. Okay, so let's get into this. I feel like I'm becoming a court correspondent now. You know, I'm covering the Assange thing, and the next thing is like Venezuelan court ruling. So the ironic thing is that the Bank of England, where all this Venezuelan gold is stored, is not too far actually from the Old Bailey, right? They're both in the city of London, which is a district in London, and they have their own police force, right? Quite interesting. So let's get into it. Let me bring up this thread for you that I posted yesterday. Okay, so you can see over here, a British appeals court has overturned a July ruling which recognized the US-backed puppet Guaido as Venezuela's interim president. The Bank of England used this ruling by the High Court to steal $1.8 billion worth of Venezuelan gold. So you see, the issue before is that Venezuela, they have literally tons of gold stored in the Bank of England. And there was contention as to whom this belongs. And so the Bank of England, all of a sudden, decided to go to the High Court and ask the courts to decide to whom the gold belongs, right? Because you have Maduro on one side and you have Guaido on the other side. And Guaido, as you know, is this president of the National Assembly who's been propped up. He's a puppet. He's a U.S. puppet. Now, you have about 60 countries, if I'm not mistaken, who recognize him as the president of Venezuela. But, I mean, he's virtually unknown inside of Venezuela. It's a joke. And this is a tactic that governments in the West often use, which we'll get into in a second. But regarding this court ruling from July, so the Bank of England, they went to the courts, and the High Court decided in July that the UK does not recognize Maduro as the legitimate president of Venezuela. They recognize Guaido, right? So with that ruling, the Bank of England essentially robbed the Venezuelan people and the Venezuelan government and said, okay, well, we're taking your gold now. It's ours, and we can give it to Guaido. So the Maduro government launched an appeal, and that appeal was concluded yesterday. And what did the London Appeal Court decide? Well, it ruled that it can't make a final ruling, right? So it didn't know. Let me read you the exact statement here from the ruling, okay? So before a definitive answer can be given to the recognition issues in these proceedings, it will therefore be necessary to determine whether Her Majesty's government recognizes Mr. Guaido as president of Venezuela for all purposes, and therefore does not recognize Mr. Maduro as president for any purpose, or Her Majesty's government recognizes Mr. Guaido as entitled to be the president of Venezuela, and thus entitled to exercise all the powers of the president, but also recognizes Mr. Maduro as the person who does in fact exercise some or all of the powers of the president of Venezuela. You can see how these court rulings start becoming a bit ridiculous when you have a government on the other side of the planet arbitrarily deciding who's legitimate and who's not. This reminds me of the Senate the hearing in the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, not the one about Syria, the one shortly after, where they were talking about Venezuela and how the coup attempt in order to prop up Guaido had essentially failed miserably because, as is glaringly obvious, Maduro is the president. He controls the army, he controls the government, he controls the police. Guaido does not, so he's not the president, no matter what you say. Nonetheless, the United States and their senators are outraged at this botched failure. So it's not a sign that, oh, well, this is stupid and illegal and a violation of international law and we shouldn't meddle in other countries. No, they're angry that their strategy didn't work, and so they're exploring other options now, right? So one of these strategies is, of course, robbing the Venezuelan people, because that's what imperialists do. And so yesterday, this court ruling in the UK, decided that they can't decide, and they overturned the ruling from July. Now, you might think that's good news because that means it defaults back, the gold defaults back to Maduro and the Venezuelan people. A lot of people have been celebrating that court ruling. Now, if it were final, yes, that would be a great thing. However, it's not. And so I'm going to read to you the fine print now, which is just after the point I just read to you. So all of the press, everyone is reporting on this point 127, and they've ignored the ones just below it, 128 and 129. So the court ruled yesterday that these questions are best determined by posing a further question or questions to the FCO. FCO is the Foreign and Commonwealth Office. So that's the UK, that's the British equivalent of the State Department. What does that mean? Drum roll, you know what's coming. And of course, point 129 says the same thing. It will, of course, be a matter for the FCO, the Foreign and Commonwealth Office, whether to provide the clarification which I have suggested is needed. So do you understand what's going on here? Do you understand what's going on? The appeals court is saying that the high court, because they're sending the case back to the high court, right, to make a final decision. They're sending it back, and the appeals court is telling the high court, we recommend that you go and seek counsel from the FCO, from the Foreign and Commonwealth Office. Yeah, that's not good, because the Foreign and Commonwealth Office is an imperialist institution. They're going to say, we don't recognize Maduro, we recognize Guaido, and then the gold will be given to Guaido. So I don't know why everyone is not reading this fine print, so to speak, but it's quite concerning. You know, let me remind you that the former Foreign Secretary until 2019 was Jeremy Hunt, right? And he openly said that, oh, Maduro is the illegitimate president of Venezuela and we don't recognize him, etc., right? And same thing from Dominic Raab, who's now the Foreign Secretary, the current one. You can see him here shaking hands with Guaido, right? So all of these countries, the UK, the US, and all of their Western European friends, they all recognize this puppet over here, even though he has no legitimacy whatsoever. He's just been propped up by them, and they've constructed an entire shadow government as well. And it's quite weird because, you know, the UK government still maintains relations with Venezuela in some capacity, right? So they still have an embassy in Venezuela, in Caracas. The US does not. So it is a weird dilemma here. But to suggest that Maduro is not the legitimate president, I mean, this is lunacy. It's delusion. It's delusion. And another thing that's quite striking in this court decision, or court ruling rather, from the appeals court, is that they openly said in the following point, 130, that they don't consider international law in any of their ruling. They just discarded this argument entirely, completely, right? So, quote, I have not so far considered the argument advanced by Professor Dan Saroushi, QC, for the Maduro board, that for Her Majesty's government to recognize Mr. Guaido as president de facto would be contrary to customary international law and therefore unlawful under the common law of this country. See, this is really a funny thing with the UK, right? When it suits them, they'll apply international law and treaties into common law. And when it doesn't, they just discard them, right? So what I'm talking about is this, for example, right? They know it's a violation of international law, and they just don't care. They just don't care. They won't bother applying that, even though it is also a violation under British common law. And when it comes to Tony Blair, for example, why they did not prosecute Tony Blair in 2017, you know, the High Court ruled that because there's no law under British common law against a war of aggression, that he can't be prosecuted, even though it is a crime under international law, which is absurd, because once again, they're putting British law over international law. You can't do that because that voids the whole point of international law. Moreover, this is an exercise in mental gymnastics, because to say that there's no law under British common law for wars of aggression, well, I mean, that doesn't change the fact that he committed war crimes and he started an illegal war with the Bush government, with the Bush regime. But you see, when they want to, they can find mental gymnastics and loops and loopholes in order to block leaders and war criminals from being prosecuted. But when they want to, they'll just go after journalists. They'll steal gold from other countries. You know, for example, Julian Assange, again, the extradition treaty between the US and the UK, it has a clause in there that says you cannot extradite someone to face a political trial. But the implementation inside of British common law under the Extradition Act omitted this section. How convenient. And so, once again, we're finding ourselves in this arena of mental gymnastics where the UK and US are trying to extradite Assange using the extradition treaty while ignoring the part that says that you can't extradite someone to face a political trial. Yeah, it's really absurd. So they're openly discarding international law here. And, you know, the broader point that I want to get into here is that this entire procedure is absurd. I mean, what is a foreign government doing deciding who the legitimate leader of Venezuela is or isn't? I mean, think about this concept. You have a foreign government, the British government, bestowing upon itself the authority to decide who is the legitimate leader of Venezuela. Who cares what the British government thinks? I mean, could you imagine Venezuela deciding who the legitimate prime minister of the UK is? You would laugh at this concept. So why do we not laugh at the reverse? Because they brainwash people into accepting this idea, this notion that you can dictate to other countries in the global south, non-white countries, who's in charge, right? This is no different from colonialism. It's no different from coming onto their shores with boats and just, you know, establishing an earl or a viceroy or whatever and governing people. It's no different. It's just being done remotely now in another manner. And they're literally robbing them, right? So this is the same kind of tactic we see used with all other regime change ploys, right? So just like they did with Syria, you know, Obama saying, oh, Assad has to go. Who are you to decide that? I mean, in the same breath, they're saying the Syrian people should be given democracy and they should decide who their leader is. And yet you're speaking for the Syrian people and you're not Syrian. And the same thing here with Venezuela. They want to give Venezuela democracy and yet they're deciding who's going to lead Venezuela. You're not Venezuelan. It's not your business. You're dictating to other countries what to do. You're an imperialist pig. You are a fascist. There is no other way to look at this. It's disgusting. So they always use this tactic, right? They use it with Lukashenko in Belarus. They used it with Assad in Syria. They used it with Gaddafi in Libya. They used it with Saddam in Iraq. They're using it now with Maduro in Venezuela. They just decide, yeah, we don't recognize you as the legitimate leader, even though you literally won a democratically elected mandate. And same thing with Morales, right? They accuse them of voter fraud and rigging using the OAS, which is a Cold War instrument. And then they get rid of them. They oust them. They literally commit coups using far-right militias or whatever other means necessary or available to them, rather. So it's all the same game, right? They just randomly bestow upon themselves the authority and deem themselves fit to decide who is leading a country that they have no connection to on the other side of the planet. It's absurd. And moreover, it's not just they're deciding this. They're also robbing these countries. This is piracy. This is state-sanctioned piracy. And we're seeing this all over the place. You're seeing the United States stealing Syrian oil with the help of the Kurdish-led SDF, right? With the company called Delta Energy LLC, and just Lindsey Graham and Mike Pompeo openly talking about this in the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Just out there in the open. This is being recorded. It's being archived. They don't care. Did you get a deal to take the oil from Syria? Yes, we did. Sorry for the delay, by the way. Yeah, that you saw my reporting on this. They're just blatantly admitting to robbing other countries. Not to mention Iraq. We're not even going to get into Iraq now. You know Iraq. And then, of course, when it comes to Iran, you know Iran has been sending Venezuela fuel tankers, right? Because Venezuela is sitting on the largest deposit of oil reserves on the planet, but they can't refine any of it, right? Because their infrastructure has been crippled by sanctions by the West. And so Iran is sending them fuel, and you know, the U.S. threatened to essentially pirate the ships. Mike Pompeo was saying we were going to block these ships, and then they lied about it too. They claimed that they stopped 4 tankers, and it turned out these tankers did not belong to the Venezuelan. Did not belong to Iran. They were actually private tankers transporting oil. So, I mean, you can pick which one is worse to you, robbing private citizens or robbing another government. It's literally piracy. They're literally confiscating merchandise and boarding other ships and just, leading them off to their own territory. This is piracy in 2020. State-sanctioned piracy, literally, in the full sense of the term. And then they're doing the same thing with the gold. They're stealing $1 billion worth of gold, $1.8 billion. And you have to keep in mind that these 31 tons of gold, Venezuela is in dire need of them because they need to deal with this coronavirus crisis, right? Again, Venezuela is short on foreign currency. They're short on gold because that's how they've been buying fuel from Iran, for example. And they can only resort to that because they don't have any foreign currency. And they're under heavy sanctions, really crippling sanctions. Even medical supplies they can't import, and it's killing people. So, they've designed the system where countries collapse. They tank their economies. They let their currencies go into free fall. They destroy their infrastructure for refineries. They destroy their medical infrastructure. And then they're like, oh, look, these socialist countries don't work. Yeah, because you sanctioned them and you've been choking them and committing siege warfare against them. Of course, they're in peril. Of course they are. And so in order to deal with coronavirus, they need their gold. And the Maduro government has told the UN that they want this gold to be sold via the UN so that they can finance medical expenses, right? Expenditures. So the Guaido government, of course, the puppet Guaido is saying that, it's just corruption and they just want to steal the gold. It's not your gold. It belongs to the Venezuelan people. So, I mean, whatever they do with it is kind of irrelevant at this point. The issue of ownership, which is, again, being randomly decided by an imperialist court in London, is what's at hand here. Do you understand? It's not your gold. You don't represent the Venezuelan people. You were not elected as president. This is absurd. So you have some puppet propped up by 60 Western governments, essentially trying to steal gold from the Venezuelan people with the Bank of England, and they're using the High Court to mandate this. I mean, this is imperialism in 2020, right? And same thing when they're sanctioning ICC inspectors. You saw that. The chief prosecutor at the International Criminal Court was sanctioned by Mike Pompeo, and also the head of the judiciary at the ICC. So Trump signed this executive order back in June, and then last month Mike Pompeo launched sanctions against them. It's piracy. It's piracy. I don't know what else to tell you. These countries, they pretend to be democracies and like they're based on the rule of law, and they act like pirates. They're rogue states. They're thugs. And they openly talk about this, and they have no shame. And the UK, of course, is helping the United States in this endeavor because, I don't know if this is necessarily true, but I didn't need John Bolton to confirm it. John Bolton, he wrote in his memoirs that the UK stole this gold from Venezuela at the discretion of the U.S. government. Now, we don't need John Bolton to tell us that. They would have. That's pretty evident. It's pretty evident that this is what they do, right? They sanction countries, they try to cripple them economically, they starve them off, and try to prevent them from doing anything. It's the same strategy with Syria, right? They've been blocking medical equipment from getting in. Even if it kills people, they don't care. And then they point fingers and say, oh, look, corruption, inability to handle the crisis. Yeah, it's because you're starving them. You're implementing siege warfare. And then same thing with the Caesar Act sanctions, right? Which are some of the harshest sanctions I've ever seen. They're stopping any government whatsoever, any party whatsoever from interacting with the Syrian government, from dealing with them in any capacity, even if it includes rebuilding, right? And this has caused the currency to go into free fall, even worse than before. So these imperialist countries, they're absolutely shameless. And, they think that they have the authority to decide who is going to lead another country on the other side of the planet. And if these foreign governments don't play ball, then they will come with sanctions. They will come with drones. They will come with B-52s. They will come and personally plunder the resources. They will sanction them. They will rob their ships. They will steal their gold and foreign assets and freeze their bank accounts, and et cetera, et cetera. Even ICC inspectors, who are non-state actors, who are the most impartial, as most impartial as it gets, and who are just investigating war crimes. And that's enough of an affront on the U.S. for them to engage in such behavior. So again, I just want to point your attention to the fine print over here. This is going to go to the FCO, to the Foreign and Commonwealth Office. That's not a good thing. That is not a good thing because the FCO is the equivalent of the State Department in the UK. And we already know what they think. They are not going to tell the high courts to rule in Maduro's favor. They will they will tell them to rule in Guaido's favor. So that's not a good thing. Anyway, I just wanted to bring you up to speed on this. You could argue that for perhaps it is a good thing because now the Maduro government still has a fighting chance. Well, I hope they get it back. It's their gold. I mean, who's this puppet just coming out of nowhere to take this? They need this money for coronavirus, and they're literally choking them and starving them from their own assets. So think about how evil that is. There you go. We got 193 beautiful people watching right now. Please make sure you hit the like button because we only have 99 likes. We need, the algorithm, the thing. Okay. So just a second. Let me read your comments. Mberg33 says UK did this to the US in 1776. So where's the upset? Nico, thank you very much. Says, hey, Richard, keep up the great work as always. Loved your coverage from England on the Assange trial. Pompeo is Netanyahu's fluffer. Yeah, so thank you both for your lovely comments. Getting back to Assange, so I wanted to, it was crazy, man. So look, I wanted to show you some videos, some pictures from that because, hold on. Yeah, so, okay, I'll explain this to you in a second. You'll understand. There we go. Okay. Oh, okay, wonderful. So, let's get into this. Right, so Julian Assange, the extradition hearing wrapped up for the time being on Thursday, right? It actually ended a day early. It was supposed to end on Friday. Well, it's supposed to take longer than 4 weeks regardless. And the judge wanted to get through all the witnesses as fast as possible because all of the witnesses are testifying in Assange's favor, and she doesn't like that, right? So we had to get them out as written statements as fast as possible. And this included Noam Chomsky even. And this included two anonymous witnesses from UC Global who spied on Assange, who spied on the Ecuadorian embassy. Explosive testimony. But of course, we had to rush through it, right? And the 2 days later on Saturday, there was a vigil for Assange in Piccadilly Circus in London, right? So I went there with the activists. Once again, I want to give a huge shout out to all these activists because they've been so brilliant. They are really the backbone of this movement. When all of the press, even independent media, they're turning a blind eye, they're burying their heads in the sand. They're not. When the whole world is going about as if they're not implicated or concerned by this, as if they don't care, these activists are putting in the work. They're there every day. They're queuing up at 5 a.m. just to get me in and get Craig in and get other journalists and observers in from Reporters Without Borders, from other NGOs, so we could watch the trial and report. So huge shout out to them. They really, I can't thank them enough. And Jamie, Nyla, everyone, they've been great. And they put in so much work queuing up for us and then staying outside, banging away with the instruments, chanting. And you know what I realized? I mean, this won't come as a shock to you, but I think one of the reasons that the hearing took place on the 6th floor, right at the back of the hallway. So I was in court 11, which is adjacent to court 10. So there's literally a wall between us and Assange. That's it. And I think the reason that the hearing took place on the 6th floor and at the back of the hallway, so you couldn't hear the noise outside. Because if you look back at the extradition hearing when it was taking place in February, this was in Woolwich, right? So Belmarsh prison, and you had busloads of people coming in from France, Germany, and they were making a racket. You could hear it inside the courtroom. It was really, really annoying, which is getting the job done. So I think to subvert that, they put the hearing right at the top, right at the far end of the courthouse, so you can hear it. Even though, keep in mind, the courthouse is virtually empty, right? With COVID, there's not much taking place there. There's some cases, but you could have easily put it on another floor. They didn't. So, so Saturday there was a vigil, and I went there to film. And this is a Piccadilly Circus, so I posted some of these on Twitter. You might have seen. Well, I'm trying to get these videos out for you. Right. So all of a sudden, we're standing around and the cops start flooding in. Yeah. You had 2 over there and 2 over here. And then all of a sudden, 10 cops are there. And then all of a sudden, one of them is holding a camera, filming us. Take a look. I posted surveillance state in plain sight. Just literally standing there with a monopod and filming us. In the middle of the city. Like, they don't even bother hiding it anymore. It's just like mass surveillance in your face. You know, as a way to intimidate people. Just obscene. And, you know, then they start milling in. And look, this you had 40, 50 cops at the end. For a protest where there's like 20 people. There's like 20 people. Even Craig Murray, the ambassador, showed up, right? And it was great. It was great. So I'm trying to find the footage that I posted of it. I posted a lot of videos. So if you're not following on Twitter, by all means, go and follow, and you will find a plethora of nice pictures and clips and coverage from this vigil, which was in central London. So let me just pull this up over here for you. I'll tell you about Belmarsh in a second, right? So, yeah, here we go. Right. So you can see this is a pretty calm protest. Ain't nobody being violent. By the way, shout out for the Palestinian flag. But this is a calm protest. You don't need 40 cops to come and deal with this. This is absurd. Like, you got more important things to do in a city of 10 million. So look at that, man. I filmed all of them. Now, I didn't count how many there are. I lost count. It was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's just the first frame.
The lady who just walked up.
Free! Julian Assange! Free! Julian Assange! The man at the protest here today is supporting.
I think that's quite excessive. Quite excessive, to say the least. And then it didn't stop there. They also started bothering Eric. Eric is really a sweet, gentle man. He's 92 years old. And they started bothering him as well. You see this cops trying to like talk him into leaving, and he just wouldn't leave, which was awesome.
These are being turned upon the people. We need freedom of speech. We need unity. We need community to survive. It's going to be difficult times ahead, folks. We're going to need people to pull together because the police are being used against the people they're supposed to be protecting. That's you and me, tax-paying legal citizens of this country. Police are being turned up.
Yeah, so he's just shaking his head. He's like, no, I'm not going. He's great. Eric is great. Here's a picture that I snapped. I don't know if you can see the full frame. I'm going to zoom out. Yeah. Very artsy, right? Very artsy. Yeah, so they broke up the protest, and then they followed us for like 10 blocks. I'm not kidding. They followed us from Piccadilly Circus all the way into Soho. Just, what are you doing, you know? And, you know, I asked them, am I allowed to film? You're going to give me, I was trying to ascertain whether they're going to give me shit or not. And they said, no, there's no problem. You're in a public place. You can film. It's good, great. And I just stuck it in the face of the guy who was filming us. You know, and they tried saying that, oh, you need a risk assessment, etc. And we tried to explain to them, well, the activists tried to explain to them that there's no one organizing this, right? So they were saying, oh, whoever organized this needs to fill in or establish a risk assessment. It's just, there's no ringleader, whoever you're looking for, okay? It doesn't exist. Anyway, they chased everyone away, and they started bothering, you know, every person individually. Like, you saw they're going after Eric. There's one friend of mine, you had 4 cops towering over her. I mean, just ridiculous, really. You know, you might think that, okay, they're being kind about it. They don't have guns, which is a plus. But yeah, it's still intimidation. Even though they're being kind about it, they're shutting us up. You don't need a permit. You don't need any kind of permission to hand out flyers or to protest. You just show up. So what happened to democracy? What happened to free speech? You know, we can't get into the court. No, okay, let's go from the beginning. We can't do journalism, right? We publish war crimes. Oh, you go to Belmarsh prison. You're going to be extradited 175 years. Okay. Can we watch the extradition hearing? Nope. 40 NGOs, journalists, etc. Access revoked on day of the hearing. That's it. Tough luck. No explanation why. You're not getting in. You're not going to have any trial observers or human rights organizations or NGOs observing the trial. Nope. Can I get in the press annex? I have a journalist card. Nope. You need this one. And then you're still not guaranteed to get on the list. Okay, can I get in the press gallery? Can I get in the public gallery? Yeah, if you come queue at 5 a.m. There's 5 spots. And then, of course, those VIP seats, which the judge reserved, were for members of the Australian Council, and they didn't show up. Of course, this was, again, to block observers from NGOs from seeing this sham trial. Okay, can we protest this sham trial? Can we protest what's going on? Nope. You need a risk assessment, and we're going to film you and follow you home. I mean, this is ludicrous. You know, if you're worried about a police state, well, here it is. You know, you want to talk about other countries being authoritarian? What is this? What, they put a smile on and that makes it better? No, it doesn't. No freedom of press, no right to protest, can't even watch a public hearing in a public court, no open justice, being intimidated with cameras, being intimidated with dozens of police, literally. And they even arrested someone, by the way. They arrested one of the activists. And he was not as old as Eric, but an elderly gentleman. And they threw him in. He came out laughing afterwards, but still, he had to pay a fine and everything. So this is absurd. This is absurd. Wouldn't even leave Eric alone, man. Come on. That guy's really sweet. I talked to him. He's awesome. So yeah, the day after, I went to Belmarsh prison, right? I went to where Julian is being held. And keep in mind, this is a category A, maximum security prison. Once again, this is where they keep terrorists, right? This is where they keep the worst of the worst. So it tells you a lot when a journalist is being locked up there. And remember, it was for jumping bail. There was no indictment at the time. There was no extradition request at the time. So the only crime that he had committed, the only crime that Assange had committed when they dragged him out of the embassy was jumping bail. He didn't commit any other crimes in the UK. And they sent him to Belmarsh prison. So, I mean, if you jumped bail, do you think they would send you to Guantanamo Bay? Do you think that they would send you to ADX Florence or Alexandria Detention Center or MCC? Do you think that's suitable? Of course not. It's political. That's what it is. And so that's why they sent him there, right? They sent him with the worst of the worst. And I went there, and it's extremely harrowing. I mean, you have... this thing is like... it's an hour by train from central London, right? Plumstead, and then you got to walk a bit to get there, and it's just these huge walls. It's really like the Black Gate of Mordor, you know? And you can't even see anything. The complex is so huge. It's ridiculous. And I think, again, the capacity, I think, is 910 prisoners at the moment. Anyway, so, I started filming out there, and I just wanted to talk about... I wanted to show solidarity and talk about what Assange is going through, because you have to keep in mind that although we're very worried, and everyone should be worried about him being extradited to the US, where he'll be placed under SAMs, which are even worse, it doesn't mean that his conditions in Belmarsh are acceptable. They're also extremely horrible, okay? He's being held in solitary confinement, can't leave his cell for 23 hours a day, no exercise, and this is compounded on top of the 7 years that he spent in the Ecuadorian embassy. I mean, this is almost a decade of arbitrary detention, right? And he's already served his sentence for bail. He's already served his sentence for having seconded bail. He's being held now just so the U.S. can make an example out of him. And again, I point your attention to the fact he was held on an old indictment, an outdated indictment, just being held illegally in the prison. So, the conditions in Belmarsh prison are horrible. And we heard testimony from medical experts during the court proceedings that even if Assange stays in the UK, there's still a risk he could commit suicide because the conditions are so harsh. And you've had 3 prisoners that have died in Belmarsh during the last year alone, right? And not every one of them has been investigated. So, I mean, the fact that he has breathing problems, that there's COVID, that, he's being denied basic privileges that other prisoners are given, the fact that He's suffering from depression, understandably so, being locked up like that, and he's not being given proper care. We established Koppelman. Dr. Koppelman was one of the top neuropsychiatrists in the country, and who's taking care of Assange. Told the court that you can't trust these prison reports because he's not going to confide in the prison shrink. Dali is her name, I think, and Dr. Dali. And so, he is suffering. And it doesn't say that in the prison reports because he's scared of you throwing him in solitary or rather further restrictive conditions and imposing harsher measures on him. So he's not confiding in you, obviously, and that's a common thing among prisoners, as Dr. Crosby also ascertained, an American doctor who's examined Guantanamo Bay detainees. So, you have some of the top doctors on the face of this rock, on the face of this planet, telling you this man is in dire need of medical attention. His conditions are inhumane. This is not sustainable. And nonetheless, they're keeping him there, right? So Belmarsh prison is really a horrible place. And again, as I said in front of the prison, and I've told you this many times, I find it absolutely bizarre that you have a Jordanian terrorist who's connected to the 9/11 hijackers. He gets to go out on house arrest. And this costs the UK taxpayers £500,000 a week just to keep him under surveillance. And then they ended up retracting it, withdrawing it, and throwing him back into Belmarsh. But then they drew up a special extradition treaty with Jordan just for him, so that when he gets to Jordan and he's tried for those 2 terror plots, they can't use any testimony obtained under torture. And so once he got to Jordan, he got off scot-free. I mean, the special treatment that a terrorist gets, house arrest, a new extradition treaty to make sure they're safe once they get to their destination. For a terrorist, a fucking terrorist who's connected to the 9/11 hijackers. But Julian Assange, a journalist, is treated worse than a terrorist. And they're talking about this in the court, about what conditions he's going to be placed under, these SAMs or administrative segregation in the US, as if that's commonplace or it's normal or acceptable for a journalist to be treated like a terrorist. Equating the two. I mean, this is absurd. This is obscene. So, I'm filming in front of the prison. I'm just talking about this, and also about what Stella Morris talked about, how, every morning when he was being sent to the Old Bailey, again, keep in mind, this is about an hour and a half by car, or rather this van, which is an upright coffin that they lock him in. Every morning before he gets in, they strip him naked. He's got to be x-rayed. He's handcuffed. This is dehumanizing. This is absolutely dehumanizing. And every day you have to do that. And then an hour and a half back, all the way from the Old Bailey, from City of London to Belmarsh. So you can imagine the kind of toll this is taking on him, mentally, physically, emotionally. It's awful. It's awful. This guy is a journalist. He published the truth. He exposed their war crimes. Doesn't deserve this treatment. You can't justify this under any circumstances. You just can't. Just can't. And I wanted to talk about that, and then one of the guards comes out and stops me. Says, I can't film. What do you mean I can't film? There's no signs that say you can't film. This is public property. And he starts to say it's prison property. Prisons don't own any property. What are you saying? He's being funny with me, right? And because the activists, they film there every Saturday. They live stream there. They have no problems whatsoever. I know this because they told me. And for the first time ever, I got in trouble, apparently, Now, you can say he was being nice about it. I don't think censoring journalists and telling them to stop talking about inhumane prison conditions bestowed upon other journalists is nice or kind. Okay, that's telling people to shut up and get away and not expose the truth. So that was absurd. That was absurd. Anyway, I just want to give you a little update on the vigil that we had on Saturday. And once again, huge shout out to all the activists, all the work they're putting in. It's just immeasurable. It's really paramount. It's the backbone of this movement. And, if they weren't doing it, there would be no one. The media would be silent, even independent media. There would be no one else outside. They're really the spine, the backbone of this movement. So huge shout out to them. And they this is not a one-time thing. They do this all the time, every week. And they were in front of the court every day, from dawn until the proceedings were over late in the afternoon. Yeah. So huge shout out to them. Major respect, really. And it's thanks to them I was able to get in when press are being openly barred from the press annex, right? And you have VIP seats being reserved for people who don't show up, and NGOs being shut out, and journalists being shut out, and human rights groups being shut out, and people carrying journalist cards being shut out until they don't have the right credentials, which is absurd. I heard One guy, Moritz, for example, he had a IFJ card, which should technically be worth more than anything because it's the International Federation of Journalists. So I don't see what supersedes that. And he didn't just have the IFJ card, he also had the NUJ card, the National Union of Journalists, which is a UK union. However, he had the Irish version, okay? So he doesn't have this hologram on it. So he didn't have the British version, he had the Irish version. And apparently that wasn't good enough. I was like, y'all just keep going with the discrimination, right? Unbelievable. It's the same union. It's just Irish and not British. It's the same union. It's the same union of journalists. It's a press card. He has 2 press cards. Why are you not letting him in? And then on the last goddamn day, they finally let him in, or approved him. And then, oh, the press annex is full. You can't go in. This is what we're dealing with, man. This is what we're dealing with. And of course, keep in mind, during lunch breaks, the activists would come back and keep our spots while we're running around. Like I'm running past St. Paul's, I'm going to the co-op trying to get some food and then run back so we don't lose our spots. So really, just huge respect for them. And I really thank them a lot for their work. And, I want to thank you guys also for supporting the show. London is goddamn expensive. So thank you so much for supporting that and enabling me to actually go and report directly from the court and document what's happening here, because it really is the trial of the century. It really is an affront on press freedoms and freedom of speech. And, all these clowns that are ignoring this or did one video about it and just, went to talk about Ben Shapiro or Trump or Biden. I mean, that's beyond journalistic malpractice. They're shooting themselves in the foot, because after Assange, they're going to come for you, especially independent media, because the corporatists, they don't care. People who work at the BBC, people who work, at CNN and Fox, they don't do national security journalism. They don't talk against imperialism. So no matter what happens to Assange, they're safe. That's why they're not reporting on this. They're part of the establishment. They're arms of the national security blob. But independent journalists, you are going to get screwed. You see AOC, for example, who's supposedly a leftist, allegedly, and she's calling for censorship. And you have all these people that are encouraging censorship, not thinking that, if I say silent or if I encourage this, it's going to come back to bite me. It's going to come back to bite all of us, right? So anyway, I want to thank you guys for supporting the show and helping me to report on this hearing. So once again, for those of you who missed it, please go watch the playlist. I did hours of coverage every single day. And in conclusion, the judge will be giving a decision on January 4th, at 10 a.m. at the Old Bailey. So I think personally that her... I don't think she was fair. Again, I've highlighted all those reasons before, and I do think the defense did brilliantly. I mean, they could not have found better witnesses to testify. They had explosive testimony from UC Global about the spying that went on at the Ecuadorian embassy. They had Noam Chomsky. They had Trevor Tim, Andy Worthington, Carrie Schenkman, Eric Lewis, Dr. Crosby, Dr. Koppelman. I mean, I can't even keep up, just the best of the best when it comes to human rights attorneys, when it comes to doctors, when it comes to just everyone in their respective field, just seasoned veterans, crème de la crème, and they were really helpful and their expert testimony was vital. And they built a solid case. I don't think you could have built a more solid case. Now, it remains to be seen whether the judge is going to heed their calls to stop this extradition. We'll see. I don't know. I'm keeping my hopes up, but at the same time, I'm expecting, I'm hoping for the best, but expecting the worst. That's the saying, right? So, fingers crossed for Assange, right? There you go. Whoa, we got a bunch of super chats that I need to read to you guys. Thank you very much. So, hold on, let me just zoom in over here. Donnie Nunn says, "Man, great coverage of Julian Assange case. You deserve an award. No joke. Where can I send you links?" Thank you. I really appreciate that. That's very humbling. I mean, it was what I can say about the hearing. It was really, you had someone from the BBC saying that it was repetitive. And that's why they didn't bother reporting on it. Yeah, this is a Home Affairs correspondent. I don't remember their name, but it was insulting. And I think that that's so absurd because if anything, what was repetitive was the call from the expert witnesses to stop this extradition. That's what was repetitive, quote unquote. But to call it, not worthy of coverage, essentially, or to imply that it was boring. I mean, this is absurd. I can't think of a more of a roller coaster of a hearing. You know, if you're so concerned with sensationalist and action-packed case, which is unfortunately the case with these journalists at the BBC and you know, other outlets, then you couldn't ask for more than one. I mean, I don't know what they're looking for, essentially. This is nonsense. These are people who are comfortable and don't want to do their jobs. That's what it is. Okay? And they're complacent and complicit, and they are more than happy to stand by and just let this happen because they're not concerned. These are not real journalists. Real journalists would be concerned. But these people work for the national security state. They work for the empire. So they don't care because they don't report like Assange does. So anyway, thank you for the humbling comment. I really appreciate that very much. Elena says, Richard, you are the bomb. Thank you. Just found you a week ago. This is my first super chat. Bless you. I really appreciate that. Says, I love your perspective as someone outside the US and your knowledge of history. Thank you. Thank you. I think it's been a while. I haven't done a lot of talk about history here, but we used to do some long live streams and go into that. But we'll resume, of course. You know, I was just, as you guys saw, I was on the road, so I'm back now, and there you go. So thank you for that. That's really sweet. Vero, merci énormément, and merci pour la traduction aussi que j'ai vu tout à l'heure. Vero was really kind enough. She translated my speech or statement rather outside the Old Bailey into French. So that was great. It says, thank you for the tremendous work. Much love from France. Merci. Rip Sir Win says, thanks for educating this Yankee on Pan-Arabism. Oh, by all means. We ain't done. We have a lot to dive into, but yeah, it's all connected. But by the way, please, before I forget, I just actually concluded. I've done several panels in the last couple of days. So if you want more on the Assange hearing, as I said, go and watch the playlist. It's on the channel right here. I'll drop the link, and you can watch every single day a video summary. Moreover, I went on Kevin Gostola and Rania Khalik's podcast. So this is from Shadowproof. It's unauthorized disclosure, right? And we talked about an hour or so regarding the case. You know, Kevin, he's done exceptional work. He covered the Chelsea Manning trial, the court-martial in 2013. So he's really perhaps the most seasoned when it comes to this. And he did exceptional work and really, you know, worked his butt off. I mean, truly, he had to get up every day like 5 because of the time difference. And he did exceptional reporting. So it was a really privilege to be on their show, on their podcast, and talk about this. So go check that out. Also, I went on... Oh, yeah, we organized a panel with all the journalists. This was fun. This was really wonderful. So all the journalists who covered the case, yes, we're not that many. There was Juan Passarelli. There was Kevin Gostola. They hosted the panel, so we did it in 2 parts. The first part, you had Hamad, you had Kathy and Mary, and then in this was Kevin, and then in the second part, you had Juan, me, Taylor, and Joey from Consortium News. And that was great. That was really awesome. So please check that out. Just type Assange panel, and you'll find it on YouTube, and the link will be below. That was like 2 hours back to back. Really great stuff. I mean, all of this insight from everyone who covered this thing, it's wonderful. You won't get it anywhere else. You really won't. And I just concluded right now, like an hour ago, I was on with Juan again. You know, Juan Passarelli, he's a great filmmaker. He's known WikiLeaks for 10 years. He's filmed hundreds of hours of Assange personally. And you know, he was basically a WikiLeaks filmmaker, right? So I was on a panel with him just now, or a round table, if you want to call it, with Transparent Media Truth. And we talked for like 2 hours about the case. Wonderful stuff. We addressed everything, man. It's what's really exceptional about this case is that you talk about one thing, and then you end up having to branch out into 5 different things because there's so much wrong with how the prosecution are going after Assange and how they're lying and subverting and circumventing the law and literally spying on him and plotting to kill him. It's never ending. And the media reporting, it's unbelievable. I mean, I don't even know how to summarize this case in any fashion. That's why we had to report daily, because it is so full of twists and turns. So definitely please check out those panels. Check out those journalists. They did wonderful work. I'm so proud and honored and privileged to be alongside them. So M. Berg 33 says, trial against press, don't allow press to speak out. Yeah, that's essentially what happened, man. They tried to block us from watching the hearing. You know, at one point, by the way, when it comes to the remote video access, they shut out Kevin at one point. So now you can say it was an accident or a glitch or something, but the problem is afterwards when he tried to notify them and other journalists were telling the court clerks that, Kevin's locked out, he can't get back in, there's a glitch, they wouldn't help him. And that's deceitful. He missed an entire morning of proceedings because of that. I mean, what are you doing? The guy's got to do his job. Why are you censoring him? Why are you blocking him out? For what? No reason. Just being dicks. So that really ticked me off. Rob Junot says, thanks, Richard. You make a better difference. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Thank you for your lovely donation. Merci beaucoup. And again, it's really humbling reading these comments, but we're just doing this because we got to talk about this stuff, man. It's so unbelievable how corrupt this entire legal institution is, how corrupt the entire extradition process is, all of it, from the start to the finish. It's all in an attempt to cover up war crimes, and it's just unbelievable how people are going about like it doesn't matter. So thank you for that. Dem Exit 2020, indeed, says, great job covering Julian Assange's extradition hearing. You made it so real and gave such great detail. Everyone should watch your videos. Thank you. I appreciate that. I should probably archive them just to be safe. YouTube doesn't like people reporting on this stuff. So there you go. Just 1 second. And thank you again for your donations. I just need to do one thing over here. There we go. So Virgil Fitzgerald, hey, thank you, says your GoFundMe donation goal has been met. Congratulations, Richard. You deserve a supercomputer. Thank you so much. I was actually, in case you guys didn't notice, I'm sure you noticed, I was left without a computer when I was doing the traveling. So that's something that I need to look into, which I haven't yet. And it was actually a dilemma because you can't bring your phone into the court. So once again, in case you guys weren't aware, although I'm sure I've said this a million times, but you can't bring your phone, you can't bring any electronics, you can't bring a smartwatch, you can't bring any food, you can't bring any sweets, you can't bring any candy, no water, nothing to drink, zero, nada. And you could pee if you wanted, but for the ladies, for example, you had two men's toilets for some reason, and there was one ladies' bathroom, and it was locked half of the time. So, and there was also this ridiculous breeze. So from my understanding, the judge in Court 10, Beretzer, she had set the thermostat to something cold, and this apparently affected the temperature in the next room where the press annex was and where the public gallery is, right? Because the journalists and the members of the public, the journalists who were not able to get in, we're all sitting in the same room, and it was freezing in there, and you had some light that wasn't working, and they fixed the light and then turned off the freezing wind that was blowing into the goddamn gallery during the last week. But for 3 weeks, it was just terrible. So yeah, I mean, they're just making it as uncomfortable as hell that you can't get it. This is ridiculous. Also, that word supercomputer, you know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of the prosecutor, James Lewis. If you go on, did I show this to you guys? Let me show it to you right now. I'm sure I showed this to you. Okay, so look, if you go over here and you type James Lewis QC, who's the prosecutor, right? You click on this first link and you have the testimonials like about how good he is, allegedly. Look at the third one. A charming man with a mega brain. Oh man, this was hilarious. And like when they were talking about Chelsea Manning, because Assange is being tried charged with 17 counts of the Espionage Act and 1 count under the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, right? That one carries 5-year sentence. And the charge is that he allegedly attempted, so not even did it, it's just you tried, right? Allegedly. They're charging him with having attempted to crack a password with Chelsea Manning. And again, I went into detail in that video. I'm not going to bore you with the tech stuff, but it was using a partial hash. And of course, it's impossible to do that. And he was asking Eller, I think was his name, the expert who's had 20 years in the U.S. Army. He's a computer forensics or digital forensics expert. So He knows what he's doing because he worked there. And he worked with the Cybernet, the classified DoD network. So he knows everything about how to catch people. He's an expert in digital forensics. And he told James Lewis, Mr. Megabrain over here, right? He told him that you can't crack a password based on a partial hash, right? You just can't do that. And you couldn't even tell where this hash came from. It could have been for any password. It could have been for I don't know, Facebook. Who knows? It's not necessarily a government computer. And we didn't even know that it's Assange on the other end, by the way. We still don't know that. Nonetheless, he told James Lewis, you can't do that. It's impossible. It doesn't work. And then James Lewis tells him, well, what if you're a super hacker? What if you got the best hacker in the world? Could they crack it? Dude, what do you think? You crack a password with your brain? Like, no, you can't do that, Mr. Megabrain. Okay, that's not how it works. And it just goes to show you how ridiculous this is that you have a lawyer who's questioning an IT expert. And actually not just questioning him, remember, discrediting him, trying to pretend that he knows better. And he did the same thing with neuropsychiatrists and neuroforensics experts. So what is he? He's a lawyer, he's a doctor, and he's also an IT expert. Louis QC, a charming man with a mega brain. No, this is absurd. This is absurd. So there you go. That's what supercomputer reminded me of. Glory. Thank you for the super chat. It says a mega brain. Yeah, we're going to call him that from now. Thank you so much. Gregory says, do you not know that court etiquette in UK and Ireland requires lawyers to comport themselves in such a manner as to drain humanity from them over the course of a life? Yeah. By the way, I think I discovered something. Thank you for the donation, by the way. I just wanted to point something out. Again, I'm not sure, so some of you might have to double check this, but I'm pretty sure because there's no other person with the same name. If I'm not mistaken, the lawyer who was trying to extradite Gary McKinnon was Mark Summers QC, or he was one of the lawyers on the extradition team, on the prosecution. Now, that same guy, Mark Summers, is on the defense for Assange. He switched sides, I guess. I don't know what that is. But, you know, at the same time, I don't know if that means anything. But, you know, at the same time, it's quite common to see the same people in extradition cases. For example, Maureen Baird, who was head of MCC, where Epstein committed suicide. She was head of that jail, Metropolitan Corrections Center in New York. She testified in the Assange hearing, right? I saw it in court. But she's also testified in other extradition hearings from the UK to the US. Why? Because she's an expert witness. She knows how bad the US prison system is because she was a prison warden. She knows. And she's not the only one. You've had Eric Lewis, for example. I've seen him also testify in other extradition hearings. And, you know, you had James Lewis, Mr. Megabrain. He was accusing Dr. Koppelman, who, again, is one of the top neuropsychiatrists in the country. He was discrediting him by saying that you're not a forensics expert. You're only a neuropsychiatrist. And then he told him, well, you've solicited my services in another case as a neuroforensics expert. So why am I not good enough for you now? Right, essentially. So you do see these people working in multiple extradition hearings. So I guess perhaps he had a lot of insight and knowledge as to what happened with the Gary McKinnon case. And therefore now if he's on the defense team, he can maybe help them navigate around that. Just something I realized. So, yeah, hold on. I think we got some donations over here that I need to get to. My apologies because I was just ranting away. We got one from Kat Terrell. There's no note attached, but thank you very much, Kat. I really appreciate it. We got one from Glory as well. Glory, darling, thank you. Thank you very much. Mona also sent a donation. None of these have notes attached, but I love you guys nonetheless. And unless I'm mistaken and PayPal is censoring again, there are no notes attached. But thank you very much, guys. And 1 second. We also got my phone is going to drive me nuts. Which was actually the case when I was in London. So I brought my phone with me. and you couldn't use it in the court. You can only use it in the lunch break or something, right? So I'm trying to upload a video for you guys, and it wouldn't upload, and it's just like the bar is just loading and loading and loading. And dude, the battery drained from 80% to 20%. I was gonna lose my crap. I was like, I can't work like this. And then I went live on Twitter because I was like, surely that has to work, and then it'll be uploaded as a video, and then I won't have to like upload it manually. And yeah, it worked, but then the video looked like a potato quality. So that because there's barely any service outside the court, so that wasn't very good. Virgil Fitzgerald has donated to the GoFundMe, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, we've reached the goal. This is amazing. Hold on, I can't see it. I think we have, or almost. In any case, almost. I don't know if it's not updating, but we're almost there. So thank you very much, Virgil. I really appreciate it. And once again, if you guys have enjoyed the coverage, again, traveling is expensive, so please, if you can, donate whatever is good for you. Venmo, PayPal, CashApp, anything to keep independent journalism going. I'm all in with this, right? There's no mistaking. So thank you very much for everybody who's been supporting. Really, really couldn't do it without you, honestly. And I kindly remind you to please also join on Rockfin, because all of the other leftists are there. You have Graham Elwood, you have Jimmy Dore, Status Coup, Nico, Combo Couch. So it's like YouTube, but without the censorship and nonsense. So we're live there right now as well, right? Go make a free account, follow, it's free. And if you want to support, you hit the red button and you get everyone's premium, not just mine. So thank you very much for that. And of course, we have the Patreon. So again, I can't thank you guys enough for enabling me to do this. Just give me 1 second over here. All right. And yeah, of course, there's the GoFundMe, but I've got James Lewis Mega Brain in my face. So, all right, 1 second. No, that's the wrong window. That's not the GoFundMe. That is the Patreon. Anyway, oh shit, no, we actually have. We have surpassed the goal. Look at that. We hit the goal. That is amazing. Thank you so much. You know what? I'm gonna play crab dance for you guys, a celebratory crab dance. So let's do that right now. Thank you so much.
And Corn Pop was a bad dude. And he ran a bunch of bad boys.
Listen, fuckhead, you have fucking crossed the line, claiming I'm the enemy. You got that, you goddamn son of a bitch?
I don't give a fuck what you think, bitch. Cut that bitch off.
Why you texting? Why? You're getting nervous, man. Calm down. It's okay. Okay.
Suck my dick and choke on it. I yield my time. Fuck you.
There we go. That was brilliant, right? I was gonna show you guys the new crab dance, but we're not yet at the goal, right? So I said 300. We're at 290 now. So we're just a few members away from hitting 300 on Patreon, and then when we do, I'll show you the new crab dance. Trust me, you don't want to miss it. All right, it's pretty hilarious. So right now we're at 290, and we just got 10 members to go. So we got a few super chats over here. Thank you, Rama Lama. Thank you very much for the donation. Redspin Sports. Thank you. Says, yo, my good friend who helped me launch Redspin Sports this year, Max Blumenthal. Max is awesome. Put me on your channel. At first to take notes on your OBS game. Really? Thank you. I'm glad. That's a good compliment to hear. I appreciate it. But since out of respect for your politics and great work, Nate, thank you very much, Nate. I really appreciate that. That's great. I'm gonna check you out. I love Max. He's awesome. Glory, thank you for the donation. Glory says PayPal is full of shite. Shite their notes. Yeah. I mean, they keep censoring people who put the word Syria or Palestine in your note. If you do a naughty like that, then your PayPal will not go through. Yes, I'm being 100% serious. You are not allowed to say the word Syria. Wow. So that's again one part of the broader scheme of sanctions, right? So in case you guys don't know, and I don't think many of you know this, when we talk about sanctions against Syria, you do know this includes things like Duolingo. This includes educational websites. You can't access them anymore. If you recall, when Rania was on my show, she told me even Tinder doesn't work. Again, no surprise. Nothing works. It's like they're isolating the country completely. And they say in the Caesar Act that it's not regarding they say in the Caesar Act that human humanitarian aid, that donations, anything that goes towards humanitarian efforts is excluded. That's not true. I mean, why are you stopping kids from learning English or learning whatever they're learning on Duolingo and doing other things? I can't remember the other examples, but just anything, man. Any product or service offered by the US is banned. You cannot access it. And that includes all of the educational services. I mean, what is that? Then again, is that surprising? I mean, they literally bombed the country and funded jihadists. I mean, this is kind of like a drop in the water compared to that, honestly. Okay? It's really, it's a joke in comparison. They fucking killed Syrians and they murdered us. So, that's just adding insult to injury, I guess. But anyway, yeah, so regarding the debates, I haven't watched them. You know what happened? Again, I was in the hotel and I'd come back from court. I did a video for you guys and then I ate and then I fell asleep. I was in bed and I tried watching it. Again, you have to consider this started at 3 a.m., right? For me, while I was or 2 a.m. in the UK. I can't remember. It was in the middle of the night and I had to get up at 7 to go to court to the next day. So I couldn't even stay up that much. And dude, after 5 minutes, I just collapsed. I fell asleep. And I don't know what to expect. I mean, everyone said it was horrible. I got to go take a look and ascertain for myself. But I believe you. Don't worry, I believe you. I know I don't expect anything else. And I can't remember who said this. Was it Dario Hunter, the Green candidate? He said something like the only person that won on the night of the debates was the manufacturer of Xanax or something. I don't know what that was. But I will go and watch it soon. So there you go. Anyway, yeah. So please, again, go and watch the panel that I did. I'm going to show you what these are right now. So take a look over here. Because I want you to get more information about the Assange hearing. I want you to have like an even more exhaustive, extensive, detailed analysis. So if you look here, I'm going to type Assange panel and hope it comes up. I think it will. So yeah, here we go. You can see that? This is the one over here, right? So you can see from the thumbnail, this was an amazing panel. We had Kevin, Taylor, Joey, then we had Hamad, we had Juan, me, Mary, and Tare. So that was wonderful. Tare, I think he was on the first one. Yeah, he was on the first panel. So this is, it's about 2 hours long. So we had them divided up in 2 teams, and definitely go and watch it. It was absolutely wonderful. And other than that, I was also on, again, as I said, on Unauthorized Disclosure with Rania and Kevin, also on the same channel. You'll find us here. Look at us looking all, I'm in my hotel room with this horrible orange red seat behind me. But yeah, we had a great discussion, so definitely go check that out. Again, I'm going to drop all these links for you in the chat, okay? So you don't have to worry about that. And yeah, it was just wonderful. And right now, I finished a video with Transparent Media Truth. It's not out yet, but it'll be out soon. And I'll give you the link to that when it's out. Okay, so here's the first link. This is for the panel with all the other journalists. And then here's the link for me, Kevin, and Rania. So there you go. And yeah, the playlist. You should definitely watch the playlist if you haven't. So, hold on. There we go. This is the one. You see? So you can see here just every single day. Can you imagine being arrested? There we go. All right. I covered every single day of the hearing, and you'll have hours of footage there to watch. And here's the link. There you go. All right. That's about it, guys. I think for today, I haven't, again, I don't want to complain. Seeing what others are going through, but I haven't had a single day off. Every day has been traveling or running or doing an interview or something, these are good problems to have. But I definitely need some rest, and I think I'll go get some rest now. I'm not going to go get some rest. I'm going to go and start working again. But yeah, thank you very much. I really appreciate you guys tuning in, and thank you for sharing the videos, for liking, commenting, raising awareness, right? Because when governments and media are working around the clock to censor what's happening to Assange and what's at stake here, then we have to do the opposite. We have to bring it to light. And you guys help with that by sharing and informing others. So thank you. And yeah, that's about it. And once again, I thank you for supporting the show and enabling me to actually travel and go and cover these things and carry out my job. So I really thank you for that opportunity. Here are the places you can donate if you want. And yep, that's it. I'll have the segments up shortly. And then that's it, man. One of you guys, hold on. So check CashApp. I did not get notified about that, so forgive me. Once again, my phone is not exactly the best. It's kind of there we go. Wow, we got a donation over here. Thank you so much, man. Adam, I really appreciate that. We got a huge donation from Adam says for the least I could do to help support you. Thank you. I really appreciate that. That's a big donation, and I really, really appreciate the support because London is an expensive shithole. So that was kind of necessary. By the way, you dude, you know what sucked about that? I mean, again, I can't complain. The activists were there like since the AM. God bless them. I can't thank them enough. But like, dude, like for 2 days straight, I had wet feet. Like, you're soaked, and this is with an umbrella. You're goddamn soaked. What do you expect? It's London. But anyway, thank you for that. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I'm reading your comments. Just 1 second. About the judge being fair. Yes, I heard that. Now, if I can give my opinion on that, I understand this argument that she's quote unquote placed in a difficult position, but I don't agree with that because look, man, you go to any court in the world, okay? Most courts in places that call themselves democracies, if they see a case with tainted evidence, it is thrown out. If you recall, Daniel Ellsberg testified at the extradition hearing, and his case was thrown out, right? Because when he was being charged with the Pentagon, because of the Pentagon Papers, and they were charging him with the Espionage Act, the government broke into his psychiatrist's office, into his shrink's office, to try and find dirt on him. And when this was found out, the case was thrown out because of this government misconduct. That pales in comparison to what the US did to Assange through Las Vegas Sands and UC Global. I mean, they literally recorded his illegal conversations with his lawyers. They bugged the fire extinguisher, the goddamn ladies' room, everything. They had cameras all over. They had laser microphones outside the windows, pointed from across onto the windows. They tried to steal his kids' diapers, man. They were spying on Glenn Greenwald. You can go and see all of this, right? They spied on Glenn. They spied on Stefania. They spied on Juan. Every single person who went through that embassy. They broke into Pamela Anderson's phone. Every single person. They photographed their passports. They broke into their phones to try to crack them. I mean, what happened to Ellsberg is a joke compared to that. And still it was thrown out. Rightfully so. So why isn't this being thrown out? The judge knows this. She's not fucking stupid. I don't say that because it's common knowledge, because we already knew before the extradition hearing, it was published in the Grayzone, for example. But we had the witness statements in the court. And she knows that these people work at UC Global because she agreed to keep their identities anonymous. How generous of her. This was at the request of the Spanish court because there's a court case happening in Spain against UC Global because of the spying. So she knows damn well that these testimonies are real and they come from people who worked at UC Global. One of them is a co-owner, owns 50%, and the other one is an IT expert. So she knows the US spied on Assange, and she continued with this hearing nonetheless. So I mean, what does that tell you? I don't consider that being fair. Again, we don't even need this alone. We have the fact that, for example, she allowed the superseding indictment. Again, this indictment, the third one, was given late. It was submitted past the deadline, and it wasn't even given to the UK courts. I was just talking about this with Juan on the Transparent Media Truth. So what happened is the United States released the third indictment to the press without giving it to the courts. So everyone knew about it, but the lawyers didn't have access to the goddamn indictment for an extradition hearing. This is obscene. And then Assange gets to read it the day of the hearing? This is a pony show. This is not a fair trial. It's not. So the fact that she's allowing the prosecution to submit things past the deadline when you can't submit any more evidence, when she's trying to rush through all the witness statements and shut the defense up, and she's blocking. Remember, she tried to block al-Masri from testifying, a victim of CIA torture. She tried to stop him from testifying, and then the video link didn't work. And then when the video link didn't work, she was like, "Okay, let's move along," even though he wanted to try on another computer, if I recall correctly. A torture victim. She's not fair. She's completely partial and biased in favor of the U.S. And she, her extradition record, again, I think this was Declassified UK who went after it, or was it Stefania? I think both of them have been doing great work, but I can't recall who asked for the FOIA on her extradition rulings. But if I recall correctly, it's 96% in favor of extradition. So she loves extraditing people. Do you understand? And beyond that, there's not much about her on the internet. She's a ghost, as Juan said. And she's a junior magistrate. She's a junior magistrate, and she's deciding the fate of the free press, whatever's left of it, if there even was one. Definitely in the case of WikiLeaks, there was. So, yeah, I don't appreciate her whatsoever, and I think she's been completely unfair. And the fact, once again, the fact that she forced the defense and the prosecution to submit written closing arguments. That's not normal. Usually you have oral arguments, okay, to wrap up the case. And at first she only wanted to give the defense a weekend, and now they get a month. That's it, 1 month to prepare closing arguments. It's not enough time. And the fact that she acknowledges it's a political trial. When she asked if the presidential elections on November 3rd will impact the case. What does that mean? That means she knows that this is coming from the top. It's coming from Trump, which is what the expert witnesses have told us. So it's a political trial, and she's aware of that. Otherwise, why would she ask this question? The only explanation is that she knows it's a political trial. So she inadvertently admitted that it's political by nature. Again, if it's political, you should throw it out. So she's had so many occasions to throw this case out for a plethora of reasons, and she is not. And she insists on keeping it going because she's serving the United States. And it's not conjecture. It's what it is. It's what it is. I was there. I saw how the defense... Dude, I waited 6 hours outside. Again, I'm not complaining. I'm just trying to illustrate to you. Actually, I am complaining. It was painful. But we had to wait 6 hours because she kept re-adjourning the court so that the defense could wrap up the witness statements. Defense shouldn't have to do that. This is only because she was rushing them. She was trying to rush them and get the last day of court over with as fast as possible. Now, you tell me something. If you're a judge and you're impartial and you're trying to understand this case as best as you can, why would you do such a thing? I mean, either you understand the gravity of this case and the responsibility bestowed upon you, and you act accordingly and you act in good faith, or you don't, and you shouldn't be judging this case. So the fact that she wanted to rush through all these statements, we had 8 witness statements on day 17 read out by the defense. 8. I can't remember, actually. It was 7, 8, 9. I lost count. Okay, I lost count. That's how bad it is. These things should not be read out. Noam Chomsky should have been able to testify via video, right? Do you understand? Khalid al-Masri, the torture victim, should have been able to testify via video. These things should not be glossed over and read out like they're explosive testimony. And you have to understand something. Another thing. The federal prosecutor, AOSA Kronberg, this guy was cited almost every single day by the prosecution, right? They used him to say that Julian Assange will be given good treatment and good medical care. A lie. They used him, they referenced him to say that he won't be placed under SAMs, Special Administrative Measures. A lie. They used him to say that Special Administrative Measures, remember, they're moving the goalposts now. Now they're acknowledging he'll be placed under SAMs, but they used Kronberg's statement to say that SAMs are like a holiday resort. Look, you have recreation. Yeah, the recreation is in an empty cell, which you walk into and you're by yourself. That's the recreation. And communicating with prisoners means you have to scream at the top of your lungs so that they can maybe hear you. Even your legal counsel, by the way. And they used them as well to talk about the indictment itself. The counts, the charges that Assange is being plagued with. So they referenced him almost every single day in a wide array of capacities, and the defense was never given the chance to cross-examine this man. This federal prosecutor was never cross-examined. He did not come via video link. He did not come in person. How is that possible? You know, the prosecution, they had every opportunity to discredit, to question, to doubt, to cross-examine, and essentially mocking the expert witnesses that the defense brought forward. And yet the defense did not have the same opportunity to do that with their key reference, Mr. Kronberg. You know, the prosecution brought forward two people only, Fazel and I forget I don't recall the other doctor's name. So these these individuals were brought here from University of so Fazel's from King's College, right? And they were brought essentially to discredit the Asperger's diagnosis and the depression diagnosis, right? So once again, the prosecution only called two witnesses for one day, on the same day, to talk about Assange's mental health and try to discredit the Asperger's and depression diagnosis. And that's it. And the statements from Kronberg, which they're referencing every single day, we never saw this man. We were never able to question him. That's not fair. That's not allowed. And, you know, that's just the tip of the iceberg. That's just the tip of the iceberg, man. You know, the fact that we have a courtroom here, we have a court proceeding, a hearing that is glossing over war crimes, that is glossing over the tens of thousands of dead Iraqis uncovered by Iraq Body Count and Chelsea Manning and WikiLeaks, that is glossing over a torture program, that is preventing a torture witness from testifying, that is openly trying to indict a journalist. I mean, like, dude, screw all of the tech issues, screw the fact that the judge is trying to rush through the witnesses, screw the superseding indictment, the fucking indictment. The US is trying to throw a journalist in jail. You don't need anything else. We don't need anything else to know that this entire hearing is unfair. That in of itself is fucking nuts. He's facing 175 years in jail. Do you understand the gravity of this? We don't need any other kind of phenomenon to convince us how absurd and dangerous this entire proceeding is. That's it. It should suffice on itself, in of itself. Okay? Everything else is just adding insult to injury at this point, and just indicative of how corrupt the whole sham trial is. So anyway, I'm going off on a rant again, and I think I've said everything I needed to say, although I'm not going to be done. You know I'm going to be back talking about this till the end of times, because this is truly the trial of the century. I cannot overstate this enough. You guys think it's a joke. It's really not. I mean, I know you guys don't think it's a joke. You take it seriously, but I mean, some people think it's a joke. They think it's not that serious. Oh, best believe it's serious. So there you go. That's about it, man. That's about it. And I think we got some, before I go, I think we got a super chat from Gregory. Gregory says, you forgot, Richie, neither UK nor US is a democracy. I agree with that. You know, sometimes I try to reel it back in, and I want to remind you, just as Gregory pointed out, that you know, we expect that there is a rule of law. We expect that there is some degree of democratic principles, that there are civil liberties. No. This is, once again, it's like falling into the trap of American exceptionalism, like actually believing that, yeah, the UK and the US have real justice systems. No, they don't. They actually don't. And this is not something that just started now. You know, Gary McKinnon, that was also unfair. Lori Love, that was also unfair. Okay, the Espionage Act has been used for 100 years to persecute political dissidents. It's nothing new. It's an unprecedented, if it happens, it's an unprecedented conviction, yes. And we will enter a new dimension now, a new sphere of repression, definitely. But to assume that UK and US justice systems have been fair since their inception is absurd. So unfortunately, it's disgusting, and it's abhorrent, it's abysmal, but it's actually quite. It's a part of their nature. Unfortunately, you know, these are imperialist These are imperialist countries. They're not interested in rule of law. They're not interested in being fair. Never have been. That's why WikiLeaks exposed war crimes, because that's what these countries do. Yeah. So with that said, I bid you good night and farewell, and I'm gonna turn in now. I'm gonna get some rest. I need some rest. So I'm really grateful for all your kind words, your comments, and your support. Thank you so much. It really means the world to me. So I'll see you guys around. Be good. Take care. And thank you for supporting the show. All right. Oh, and one last thing before I go. Please subscribe to the newsletter, because that is paramount. We do not want everything on YouTube. So please subscribe to the newsletter. Thank you very much. Bye-bye, Colin. Bye, Habibi. Thank you, everybody. I'm reading your comments. I love you guys. So thank you very much for everything. All right. All right. Good night. Good night.